My brother called the $22,000 I'd spent on his wedding venue a contribution to the family. Then he told me to sleep on a cot in the coat room on the night of the rehearsal dinner, or I could just not show up at all. My parents said that was fair, so I made one phone call to the venue coordinator, and by morning there was no wedding. Not the venue, not the catering, not the floral arrangements, nothing. And when they showed up to the rehearsal in their rented tuxedos and pressed dresses, they found a locked door and a handwritten note that said, "Enjoy finding a new venue." That's where most people would start this story. But the truth is, it started long before that phone call. It started the night I drove 4 hours in a snowstorm to bail my brother out of a situation he'd created entirely by himself, and he thanked me by falling asleep in the passenger seat without saying a word. I'm 31. I work as a hospital administrator in Cincinnati, which sounds more glamorous than it is. Mostly it means I am the person who has to figure out why the billing system crashed at 2 a.m. and who signs off on staffing schedules that nobody is happy with. I'm good at it. I've been good at it since I was 24 and talked my way into an entry-level position at Regional Medical with a degree in health services management and approximately zero experience. I built that career from scratch, nights and weekends, and skipped vacations, and by 31 I had a title, a salary that would have made my 22-year-old self cry, and an apartment I actually loved. My brother Daniel is 34. He's an electrician, which is a skilled trade, and I respect that. But he's also the kind of person who has been one bad month away from a crisis for his entire adult life. Not because he doesn't earn enough. He does, actually, especially now that he's been at the same union shop for 6 years. It's because he spends like money is a punishment he needs to get rid of as fast as possible. Trucks, equipment he barely uses, camping gear, a boat he trailed to the lake exactly twice. His fiancée, Renee, was the same way. They were financially perfect for each other in the way that two holes in a boat are perfect for each other. I liked Renee, actually. Or I liked who she was before the engagement turned her into a different person. She was funny and direct, and she made my brother laugh in a way I hadn't seen since we were kids. But somewhere between the proposal and the venue deposit, she became someone who talked about her wedding the way generals talk about military campaigns. It was tactical, it was all-consuming, and it required resources she didn't have. I should have seen it coming. The signs were there. The engagement party that my parents hosted, but I quietly paid the catering bill for. $2,000 that I transferred to my mom's account without mentioning it to Daniel or Renee because I didn't want to make it weird. The dress alterations that Renee mentioned offhandedly and then went silent about until my mom texted me asking if I might be able to help. $800. I helped. I didn't make it weird. I told myself it was a gift and I let it go. The venue was different. Daniel called me on a Sunday in February, 8 months before the wedding date. I was doing laundry and listening to a podcast and having a genuinely peaceful afternoon, which should have been the first warning. Good phone calls don't come during genuinely peaceful afternoons. "Hey," he said. "So, we've been looking at venues." "Okay," I said. "There's this place. Hartwell Estate. Out past Loveland, about 40 minutes. Old farmhouse, converted barn, 10 acres, the whole thing. Renee has wanted it since before we were even together. Like, she went to a wedding there when she was in college and she's never stopped talking about it." I waited. "It's $22,000, he said, "for the full package. Venue, tables, chairs, basic lighting, coordinator for the day. Doesn't include catering or flowers, or the bar." I did the math in my head without meaning to. It's a reflex I've developed from years of hospital budgets. "That's a lot," I said. "Yeah." There was a pause that had weight to it. We looked at a payment plan, but with the deposit they need up front, which is 30%, it's too much right now. We're kind of in a tight spot. The truck needed work last month and Renee's hours got cut. I knew what was coming. I'd known since he said Hartwell Estate, with that specific careful casualness that people use when they're about to ask for something large. "I'm not asking you to give us the money," Daniel said, and then he explained an arrangement that was, functionally, exactly that. He wanted me to put the venue on my card, lock in the date, and they would pay me back monthly. He'd even written out a repayment schedule. $200 a month. At $200 a month, they would finish paying me back in 9 years. Daniel would be 43. I did not point this out. What I said instead, because I am the person I am, was, "Let me think about it." And then I thought about it for approximately 48 hours, and I thought about how Renee had cried at Christmas when she talked about wanting the wedding to be perfect. And I thought about how my brother had looked at her when she said that, and I put the deposit on my Visa. The full deposit was $6,600. I told myself it was a gift. I told myself the monthly payments were a bonus if they happened. By April, they hadn't made a single payment. I didn't bring it up. I absorbed the remaining balance in installments over the next 5 months, because the venue required full payment 60 days before the event date, which was October 18th. By September, I had paid $22,000 to Hartwell Estate on behalf of my brother's wedding. My parents knew. I hadn't told them the full number, but they knew I was helping with the venue. My mother mentioned it to her book club. I know this because my aunt texted me to say I was so generous, and I had to look at my phone for a long moment trying to remember what I'd supposedly done. I didn't mind the money, not exactly. I mean, I minded it, but I had it, and I'd made peace with the fact that it wasn't coming back. What I minded was what came later. The rehearsal dinner was the Thursday before the wedding. Renee's family was coming in from Pittsburgh and Columbus, and my family from here in Cincinnati, and there were about 60 people total booked at a private dining room at a restaurant downtown. Daniel had asked me months ago if I could grab the reservation for the rehearsal dinner, which I had interpreted correctly as meaning I would be paying for it. Fine. Done. Another $4,000 I decided to call a gift. I'd booked myself a hotel room at the Marriott 2 blocks from the restaurant. Nothing extravagant. A standard king $189 a night, 4 nights. I needed somewhere to get ready the morning of the wedding, and I didn't want to drive back to my apartment after the rehearsal dinner. 8 days before the wedding, my mother called. "I need to talk to you about the hotel situation," she said, which was the kind of sentence that should come with a warning label. Renee's parents, it turned out, had not booked hotel rooms. They had assumed. My mother used the word assumed with zero apparent irony, that since the wedding was in Cincinnati, family would be staying with family. Renee's parents and her younger sister were planning to stay with Daniel and Renee, but there was a problem. Renee's college roommate, who was the maid of honor, had also just confirmed she was flying in from Seattle and needed somewhere to stay. Daniel's apartment had exactly 2 bedrooms. The math didn't work. "So what I was thinking," my mother said, "is that since you have your hotel room, maybe Kylie, the maid of honor, could stay with you. You'd just be sharing." "Sharing my hotel room," I said. "It's only a few nights, and you'd have company." I thought about this. I thought about the fact that I had never met Kylie. I thought about how I'd booked my room specifically because I wanted 4 nights of space and quiet before a very loud, very emotional event that I had largely funded. "Mom, I booked a single king," I said. "There's 1 bed. They can put in a cot," she said. "Hotels do that all the time. Or you could upgrade to a double. I'm sure it's not that expensive." I upgraded to a double. It was not expensive. It was $95 more per night, which I absorbed without comment because it was still only $380 a night and I was tired of doing the math on every individual insult. Kylie arrived Wednesday and she was perfectly nice. She was also a night owl who wanted to debrief about her flight and her relationship and the wedding color scheme until past midnight, on a night when I had a 7 a.m. budget call with my actual job that I had to take from the hotel room bathroom with the fan running, so I didn't wake her up. Thursday was the rehearsal dinner. It went fine. 60 people, a lot of wine, a slideshow Renee had made that was very sweet. I paid the bill when it came. The server handed it to me specifically, because I had given them my card at the start, and my brother hugged me and said I was the best. Renee cried a little and said she didn't know what they would have done without me. I went back to the hotel at 11:30. Kylie was already there, asleep. I washed my face and climbed into bed and looked at the ceiling and thought about how in approximately 36 hours this would all be over, and I could go home and sleep for 12 hours without anyone needing anything from me. My phone lit up at 12:43 a.m. It was Daniel. I almost didn't answer, but it was my brother, the night before his wedding, so I picked up. "Hey," he said. He sounded strange. Not drunk, but not quite himself. Sorry it's late, I need to talk to you about something. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. It's just… Okay, so Renee's parents. Her dad is having a harder time with the stairs at my place than they expected. His knee is bad. They're not comfortable and Renee is stressed about it. And Renee's sister ended up needing to stay there too because the original plan fell through. I waited. The thing is, Daniel said, Renee's mom specifically, she's a light sleeper and she's anxious about tomorrow, and Renee thinks it would really help if her parents had a hotel room. Somewhere quiet, so she's not going into tomorrow stressed out. Okay, I said slowly. Your room is a double now, right? You and Kylie are there? Something tightened in my chest. Yes. So here's the thing, he said, and I could hear him choosing his words with care, which was unusual for Daniel. Renee's parents could take your room. You could… there's the coat room at the venue. The coordinator said there's a cot there. She uses it for long events sometimes. It's not uncomfortable, she said. Or, you want me to sleep on a cot in the coat room, I said. It would only be one night, and it would really help Renee. I know it's a lot to ask. I sat up in bed. The room was dark, and Kylie was breathing quietly across from me, and I felt something go very still inside my chest, the way water goes still right before it freezes. Daniel, I said, I paid for the venue. I paid for the rehearsal dinner. I paid for this hotel room. I upgraded it so your fiancé's maid of honor could have somewhere to sleep. And you're asking me to give up my room and sleep on a cot in a coat closet. The coat room, he said, like the distinction mattered. I want you to understand what you're asking me, I said. It's one night, Grace. My name is Maya, I said. And it's not one night, it's the whole thing. I don't know why I did that. Some short circuit? I think I was tired. There was a silence. I know it's a lot, Daniel said. But you don't have a husband. You don't have kids. You can be flexible in a way that Renee's parents can't. And it would mean so much to Renee. To both of us. There it was. You don't have a husband. You don't have kids. You can be flexible. I'd heard that sentence in different forms my whole life, when I had taken the middle seat on every family road trip because I was the one without a preference, apparently. When I had driven 3 hours to help Daniel move because he didn't have anyone else who could take a Thursday off. When I had absorbed every unexpected expense, every awkward ask, every, you don't mind, right? With a smile and an open wallet. Let me call you back, I said. Don't take long. Renee is waiting to hear. I sat in the dark for a while. Kylie shifted in her sleep. Outside the window, Cincinnati was doing what Cincinnati does at 1 a.m. on a Thursday in October. Being quiet, being unremarkable, being itself. I called my mother. I knew she'd be awake because she's always awake when there's family drama in the atmosphere. She has a sixth sense for it. Did Daniel talk to you? She asked immediately. He did, I said. I think it's a reasonable thing to ask. Renee's parents are older. They need the room more than you do. You're young. You're adaptable. It's one night. Mom, I said. I paid $22,000 for the venue they're getting married in tomorrow. We know that and we're grateful. Are you? I said. Because nobody's acted grateful. Not once. Daniel has not made a single payment toward the venue. The rehearsal dinner was $4,000. I upgraded this hotel room so Kylie could stay here, and now I'm being asked to sleep on a cot because I'm flexible. Because I don't have a husband. Don't make this about money, my mother said, and her voice had that edge to it. The edge I'd been scared of when I was 9 and that I was done being scared of now. This is your brother's wedding. This is about family. You've always had more than enough, and Renee's parents are guests. I'm a guest too, I said. You're family, she said, as if that explained why family got the cot and guests got the bed. If I'm being honest with you, I said, I don't think Daniel or Renee have ever actually thought of me as anything except someone with a credit card. That is an ugly thing to say. It might be, I said. Tell me if it's wrong. She didn't answer for a moment. Then, you should do the right thing. Renee needs tomorrow to be perfect. Don't be the reason it isn't. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. I thought about what the right thing meant to different people. To my mother, it meant smoothing things over, keeping the peace, making sure the surface of things looked fine even if the foundation was compromised. To me, sitting there in a hotel room I paid for, it meant something else entirely. I opened my laptop. I'm an administrator. When I'm overwhelmed, I research things. It's how I'm wired. I pulled up the Hartwell Estates vendor contract, which I had saved to my Google Drive because I keep everything. I read through the cancellation policy the way I should have read it 8 months ago, more carefully this time. Full cancellation more than 30 days prior to event date, 50% refund of venue fee. Cancellation within 30 days of event date, no refund. Cancellation due to documented vendor failure or breach of contract terms, full refund at venue's discretion. Then I read something else. Something I had skimmed past in the original contract because it had seemed routine. The primary booking contact is responsible for all communications with Hartwell Estate regarding event logistics, changes, or cancellations. The primary booking contact is listed as the financially responsible party. The primary booking contact was me. I sat with that for a while. I want to be honest about what I was thinking, because I've gone back over that night many times. I wasn't in a rage. I wasn't trying to blow anything up. I was tired, and I was calculating, the way I do when I'm faced with a problem that has variables I can actually control. Here's what I knew. I had paid $22,000 for a venue. I had not been thanked in any meaningful way. I had been asked to give up my hotel room and sleep on a cot so that the event I had funded could proceed comfortably for everyone except me. My brother had told me with real words that the reason this was reasonable was that I was alone and flexible. Here's what I also knew, because I'd found it while looking up the venue's Yelp page at some point in the past hour. Hartwell Estate had a cancellation waitlist. People who wanted the venue but hadn't been able to book it would take a cancellation if one opened up. I found the venue coordinator's emergency contact number, which was in the contract, which I had in my Google Drive, because I keep everything. I called it. She answered on the third ring, groggy but professional. I told her I needed to cancel the event. I told her I understood there would be no refund given the timing. I told her I was the primary booking contact and the financially responsible party, and that I was exercising my right to cancel. I asked her to contact the first name on her cancellation waitlist first thing in the morning. She was quiet for a moment. "The event is tomorrow," she said. "I know," I said. "The vendors will have to be notified." "Catering, flowers, I understand," I said. "I'll take responsibility for whatever costs are associated with the late cancellation on the vendor side. Please send all documentation to the email on file." Another pause. "Are you sure about this?" "Yes," I said. "I'm sure." I hung up. I closed the laptop. I looked at Kylie sleeping peacefully in the other bed. This person I'd never met who had been assigned to my hotel room like an incidental, and I felt something I can only describe as the precise opposite of guilt. I felt clear. I sent Daniel a text. I kept it simple. "I've canceled the venue. I'm the primary contact and financially responsible party, so this was mine to do. I've also called the catering coordinator and the florist to inform them. They'll reach out to you in the morning. I hope you're able to put something together. I won't be at the wedding. I think it's best if we take some time." I turned off my phone. And then, because I had paid for the room through Sunday and I intended to use it, I went to sleep. I won't pretend the next morning was peaceful. I was awake before Kylie and I went down to the lobby with my coffee and sat in an armchair facing the window, and at 7:14 a.m., my phone started going. I had turned it back on at 6 because I'm not someone who can leave things completely unresolved. I needed to know what was happening. I just needed to know it at a distance. The texts came first. "Daniel, what did you do?" Then, "Yit did do." My mother, "My d you do." My mother, "Maya. Call me right now." My father, who almost never texts, "This is not acceptable. Call your mother." Renee, a string of messages that started with confusion and ended with language I won't repeat here. Then Daniel called. I let it ring. He called 4 more times before he sent a voice memo, which I have still never listened to. I can guess the contents. I texted him back at 7:45. "I did what you asked me to do. You told me that since I wasn't willing to give up my room and sleep in the coat room, I shouldn't be part of the wedding. I'm not part of the wedding. I hope you find a solution. I'm sorry about Renee. His response was 3 words. That was different. It's never different. That's the thing nobody tells you when you're the reliable one, the flexible one, the one with more than enough. The conditions are always described as reasonable and the consequences are always described as excessive, and the bar for what counts as different is always just slightly beyond wherever you actually drew the line. My father called at 8. I answered, because I have limits, but my father at 8 a.m. The morning of what was supposed to be his son's wedding was a line I couldn't cross. Your brother is driving to the venue right now? He said. His voice was controlled in the way that meant he was working hard at it. Renee is in the car. She hasn't stopped crying since 6 this morning. You have to fix this. I can't fix it, I said. The venue has already contacted the next people on their cancellation waitlist. The event has been canceled. Then pay for something else. A restaurant, a hall. There has to be something available. On 16 hours notice for 120 people? In October? You have money, he said. You figure this out. Dad, I said, I already spent $22,000. I paid for the rehearsal dinner. I upgraded my hotel room. And last night, Daniel called me at 12:45 in the morning to tell me I should sleep on a cot because I don't have a husband and I'm flexible. I'm done being flexible. Silence on the line. He said that, my father said. The control slipped, just slightly. He said I could be flexible in ways that Renee's parents couldn't because I don't have a husband or kids. Yes. My father didn't say anything for a moment. Then, I didn't know he said that. I know you didn't. I know you also didn't know that he's never made a single payment toward the venue. Not one. $200 a month, that was the agreement, nothing. He told us he was paying you back, my father said, and something in his voice had shifted. He's not, I said. He hasn't. I've paid the whole thing. The silence stretched longer this time. I also pulled his credit report, I said. This wasn't entirely true. I'd pulled public court records, which is legal. And he has a judgment against him from a personal loan he defaulted on 3 years ago. $11,000. Renee has 2 credit cards in collections. They've been in a financial hole for a long time, Dad. This wedding was never going to happen the way they planned it with their own money. It was always going to happen on mine. How do you know that? Because I'm in hospital administration. I run budgets. I know what people can and can't afford when I look at the numbers, and the numbers on Daniel and Renee have never once added up. My father was quiet for a long time. In the background, I could hear my mother's voice, the cadence of it, asking what I was saying. Maya, my father said, finally, I owe you an apology. I hadn't expected that. I don't know what I'd expected. Not that. I've been telling your mother for months that we shouldn't rely on you the way we have been, that it wasn't right. But I didn't say it out loud enough, and I didn't say it to Daniel. I let it happen. Yeah, I said. You did. I'm sorry, he said. That's real. I believed him, actually. My father and I have always understood each other better than the rest of the family dynamics suggest. He's a quiet man. He didn't fight my mother's narrative, which made him complicit in it, but I don't think he built it. What happens now? He asked. I don't know, I said honestly. Daniel has to figure out his wedding. I'm not going to help with that. And at some point, when things have settled down, I think we need to have a real conversation as a family about what's been happening. Okay, he said. Not today. No, he agreed. Not today. I hung up and ordered room service. Eggs, bacon, orange juice, a croissant I didn't need but wanted. I sat in the armchair by the window and ate my breakfast and watched Cincinnati move through its ordinary Saturday morning outside. And I gave myself permission to feel all of it, the grief of it, the exhaustion, the small, terrible relief. I cried, actually, not dramatically, just quietly into my orange juice, because I had loved the idea of being someone's generous, capable sister, and it turned out that idea had been costing me a lot more than money. The aftermath came in pieces. Daniel and Renee did get married, eventually, not on October 18th. They found a restaurant willing to do a small dinner for the immediate family and wedding party, 26 people instead of 120 in November. My mother told me this. I didn't ask. I also found out, a few weeks later through my father, that Daniel had gone to the courthouse 2 days after I canceled the venue. Not to sue me, though. I had been prepared for that. He went to look at the public records I had mentioned. He came home and told Renee what he'd seen, and they had a very long conversation that apparently involved a lot of things that had needed to be said for years. They started working with a credit counselor in December. They sold the boat. I learned this, and I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired and a little sad, and also, underneath that, something that might become relief if I gave it enough time. My mother called me in December. She didn't apologize, not in a clean way, but she said, "I've been thinking about how we talked to you that night. I've been thinking about what your father said we've been letting happen. I don't think we've seen you clearly. I think we've been seeing what we needed you to be." It wasn't enough. But it was something I could put in my pocket and take home. I didn't go to their November wedding. I sent a card, which felt like the right amount of presents. Inside I wrote, "I hope this is the beginning of something real. I'll be here when we're both ready." Daniel texted me the day after. It said, "We got your card. Thank you. I know I have to call you. I'm not ready yet, but I will." "Take your time," I wrote back. I meant it. Here's what I've been thinking about in the months since all of this. I was raised to believe that generosity was a value and that family was an obligation. And those two things got tangled up somewhere along the way into a single belief that I was obligated to be endlessly generous to family regardless of what I received in return. And the way that belief got enforced was subtle. No one ever said, "Give us money or you're not welcome." What they said was, "Be flexible, and you don't have kids so you can." And this would mean so much to them. The ask was always framed as love, and the expectation was always framed as kindness. And the result was always the same. I paid and I adapted and I disappeared a little more each time. The coat room was just the place where I ran out of room to disappear into. I see a therapist now. She said something in one of our early sessions that I've thought about more than almost anything else anyone has told me. She said that people who have spent years being the reliable one often mistake guilt for conscience. They feel guilty when they stop overgiving, and they interpret that guilt as evidence that they're doing something wrong, when actually it's just the sensation of a very old pattern changing shape. That distinction has been useful. I did one last thing before I closed the chapter on the financial part of all this. I took the $22,000 that I hadn't gotten back, and I knew when I canceled that I wasn't getting it back. The policy was clear, and I decided to think of it differently, not as money I'd been robbed of, as tuition. The most expensive class I ever took, and the most important one, on the subject of what I am actually worth and what I will and will not let people tell me otherwise. I opened a high-yield savings account with the money I've been saving since October, the money I would have spent on the next thing they needed. I'm going to use it to take myself to Portugal next spring. I've wanted to go since I was 23, and I kept not going because there was always something else. Always someone else's thing that needed the money and the time and the flexibility first. There's nothing else now. There's just the trip. And I am very much looking forward to going alone. I've spent a lot of time since October trying to figure out what the actual lesson is, not the clean version you'd put on a greeting card, the real one, the one that still has some grit in it. Here's what I keep coming back to. The coat room wasn't the problem. The coat room was just where the problem finally became impossible to look away from. The real thing had been building for years, one absorbed expense at a time, one "you're so flexible" at a time. One quiet transfer into my mother's account that nobody acknowledged, and nobody was meant to. I built a dynamic with my own hands, and then I was confused when it held. That's the part that took me the longest to sit with. I was not an innocent bystander to what happened. I was a participant. Every time I paid without being asked. Every time I smoothed something over before it could become a conflict. Every time I let Daniel off the hook for a payment he'd promised. I was teaching my family exactly what I would and wouldn't tolerate. I taught them well. They were excellent students. There's a version of intelligence that's really just pattern recognition, and I had applied it everywhere in my career and almost nowhere in my family. In my job, I would never sign off on a vendor contract without reading the cancellation terms. I would never keep funding a program that wasn't hitting its benchmarks. I would never let a bad process continue just because stopping it would be uncomfortable. But with my family, I did exactly that. Over and over, for years. Because the discomfort of changing the pattern felt like it would cost me something I wasn't sure I could afford to lose. What I've learned, slowly, in sessions with my therapist, and in the quieter moments of ordinary weeks since then, is that you can't actually lose what was genuinely there. If Daniel and I find our way back to each other, and I think we might, it won't be because I kept paying for things he should have paid for himself. It'll be because two adults who grew up in the same house eventually figured out how to see each other clearly. That's a different foundation. It's slower to build, it's worth more. The part about Renee's parents needing the room, Daniel telling me I was flexible in ways they weren't because I didn't have a husband or kids, I don't think he said that to be cruel. I think he said it because it was the story that made the ask feel reasonable, and he needed the ask to feel reasonable, and nobody had ever taught him to examine that kind of story very carefully before using it. That's not an excuse, but it's an explanation. And explanations matter if you're trying to actually understand something rather than just be angry about it. I'm not angry anymore, mostly, some days more than others. What I am is clearer. I know what I'm willing to give, and I know what I'm not, and I know the difference between generosity and self-erasure, which sounds obvious but apparently took me 31 years and $22,000 to really understand in my bones. Portugal is booked for April, 12 days. I'm going alone, and I'm not telling anyone my hotel until I'm already there. That's not bitterness. That's just me, finally, making a decision that is entirely and only mine. I think that's what dignity actually feels like when you find it after a long time of looking in the wrong places. Not triumphant, not loud, just quiet and solid and yours.